in the void of policy, people are policy.
There are more less informed people than informed people on the topic.
If the technology is still a protagonist, then you know the sector is very early. Digital assets will be seen as like cloud infrastructure for payments and settlement and lending and credit and all this activity, but it will augment existing business models rather than entirely disrupt them.
You should come here and then we'll talk about cloud. We're still in generation one. So. I think you guys could do incredibly well if you dropped the word crypto.
The thing we should all be afraid of is up until today, so much of the crypto market has been defined by the worst actors. If all we do with, quote, crypto is create a digital twin of the underlying economy with all of its systemic inequities baked into it and all of its cost structures and the hurry up and wait properties of moving money, we failed.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's episode of Couchonomics with Arjun. I guess I should call him a very special guest because he is the fourth person in the 150 odd, individuals I've had the pleasure to speak to who's made their second appearance. Last time I spoke to Dante Disparte, who is the global head of strategy and policy at Circle, was in November. We were at the Singapore FinTech Festival. This time we're online and he's tuning in from Washington, D.C. Dante, welcome.
Well, as always, it's great to be back on with you. And I'll take the dubious distinction of being a repeat offender on the program.
You should. I'll tell you the one big difference between the last time and this time when we spoke. I now know how to spell stablecoins.
And I now have a head of gray hair.
I can see that too. I was not going to make the point. I'm like, I was as we were getting ready, I said in stablecoin years, it feels like a lifetime since we last met. So, in all intents and purposes, congratulations for all the stuff which is going on with Circle. I think there's a lot of stuff which we'll hopefully unpack. As I was preparing for this, I was like, this is going to become like a 2-hour discussion. So we will not keep it for 2 hours. We'll try and keep this to 40, 45 minutes. I'm sure you got better things to do than to speak to me. As always, if I come across as remotely stupid, please correct me. But, that's the part of the learning curve, and which is what I enjoy most about the episode. So, Dante, I'll kick it off. Let me just start with simple sort of stablecoin nation, state of the nation check-in. Right, I think aggregate supply is over $250 billion, right? And you'll correct me if I'm wrong here. Just paint a picture of what's actually happened in the last 7-8 months since we last spoke, and sort of what sort of signals should we take away from these massive numbers and all the news and the noise.
Yeah, first, it's a really good question, and in some ways, that 6-month check-in since we last saw each other in Singapore has been in some ways the most decisive in the sector's history. And frankly, not because the technology has magically come of age or the original use cases or value proposition of stablecoins have come of age, but frankly, because of regulatory policy and, country level clarity in the United States. Like, that is the biggest single change that we have seen. And if you rewind the tape, to January of this year, the then incoming administration, President Trump's administration, set a whole host of whole of government efforts in motion. Number one, as we say in the policy world, in the void of policy, people are policy. And so the president named David Sachs as an AI and crypto czar. Shortly thereafter, a gentleman by the name of Bo Hines was also put in place to sort of help drive a whole of government digital assets agenda. A lot of the legislative proposals that were in both the House and the Senate got new life breathed into them, and they started advancing. We saw the passage of not one but 2 distinct digital asset legislative proposals. One of them, the Genius Act, which I suspect we'll spend the most time talking about, passed the Senate with 18 Democrats voting in favor of it. And the other one is a digital asset market structure proposal called Clarity, which also came out of the House Financial Services Committee. And so the sum of all of these activities starts to do, frankly, what I think has been the missing link in this industry for years now, which is to ensure that the United States of America takes its seat at the table. And by virtue of having the largest reserve currency in the world, and by virtue of being, such an integral part of the global economy, now more and more institutional players can come into this market, be it for the trading side of it or the payments innovation side of it, with more surety that what they're engaging in has legal regulatory clarity in the US. I think that's the biggest change since we last saw each other.
And I do agree in the sense that I've tried to immerse myself as much as I could on the topic of digital assets, because I guess that's pretty much what I do for a living, which is sort of consult a lot of institutions, financial and otherwise, and I think digital assets in the general term has been very interesting. It's been evolving, and I think from a regulatory perspective as well as I will come to the Genius Act later. I haven't been able to completely understand it, but I will. I'll phrase a very provocative question. I'll wait for your answer on that. But you
Well,
mentioned,
good. I'll get to prove if I'm a genius, in fact, on crypto policy when you ask those questions. So
well,
we'll see.
it's on your title. It says what it says on the tin. So I expect it delivers. You mentioned use cases, right? I think there's a lot of the audience which still is, if I may say, I think there are more less informed people than informed people on the topic. Let's just be honest, right? We're still a very small percentage of people, who kind of understand what's sort of going on. And even for people like me who think they're going on, I think we get it wrong more often than right. Talk a little bit about use cases, right? In the sense that if I was to just ask you very simple questions, what are the use cases which are sort of, catching fire right now? There's a lot of momentum behind. Is there something incredibly boring which has sort of crept up and become quite a big thing that we should be aware of? And then just to ask, to paint a picture not so far ahead in the future, but in the next couple of years, do you expect certain other use cases because of either the regulatory clarity or more institutions coming on board, partnerships being struck? Are you expecting some sort of interesting use cases to emerge?
Yeah. Well, first, many years ago, not to date myself, but I've been at this thing for a little while. I wrote an article in Forbes titled "When We Stop Talking About Blockchain, We Could Change the World with It." That one may have aged probably the best of many of them, but the premise there was that if the technology is still a protagonist, then the sector is very early. And in some ways, it analogizes to what has transpired with AI, that for the better part of the last decade, AI was a horizon technology. And the second OpenAI releases ChatGPT into the wild, it became the fastest growing technology with no marketing to speak of. And then the other thing that happened is that people could experience the magic, and we could finally stop talking about the opportunities and the risks of AI, but people could see it firsthand. And so part of what I think is transpiring as well, and it's bigger than any one corner of crypto, it's perhaps all of it, is the more the technology layer fades into the background and gets abstracted away as background technology, then the more you will see both people, institutions, companies, entrepreneurs, and developers are effectively unlocking the technological magic of what becomes possible when, number one, you could render money on an internet-connected device for everyone, everywhere, aka stablecoins. Number two, you could render the entire ladder of financial activities, from basic payments being the bottom rung to the more advanced lending and credit and other activities being the upper levels of that ladder, can now all be rendered in an effective internet-based bank in a box. So I think only those unlocks are possible, again, when the tech works at scale and delivers its promissory statements on the label, and when there's sufficient regulatory and legal clarity such that people do not get exposed to what has been, in that same decade that I'm talking about, a wild ride of internet funny money and complexity and fraud and all kinds of risks. I think the good news is a lot of that is becoming literally the crypto in hindsight. And so crypto with foresight is everyday connectivity. And then the last one I would mention, because I know your audience is also tends to be very sophisticated vis-a-vis strategy and technology opportunity. Cloud adoption was terrifying for many companies in the beginning. And IT teams didn't want to give up their server farms, and moving the physical infrastructure was considered a line too far vis-a-vis risk. But today, you think of cloud infrastructure, number one, as ubiquitous, and number two, essential, and number three, deep background technology on which the whole global economy rides. And I think digital assets will be seen as like cloud infrastructure for payments and settlement and lending and credit and all this activity. but it will augment existing business models rather than entirely disrupt them.
Interesting. Well, you should come here and then we'll talk about cloud. We're still in generation one. So. But here's an idea, right? Here's an idea to add to that incredibly intelligent response that you gave me. I think you guys could do, well, I say the you guys in the wider sense, could do incredibly well if you dropped the word crypto. Right, and start using the word digital assets, right? Because
but so the key is not to sanitize it, right? The key, so part of my actual job, hence my default setting when you invite me to come on your program is yes, because part of the actual job to be done is explainer in chief. I've had to tell, I've been in virtually every congressional and Senate hearing domestically and all the international ones for 7 years now. And the biggest obstacle is indeed the explaining what this stuff is and what it does. And you had asked the question, so what's a use case? The simplest and best use case is to superimpose over stablecoins the core features of money. And then presumably it becomes very easy. So our CEO likes to say, what's the use case for a stablecoin? What's the use case for a dollar? And at its base level, it's store of value, unit of measure, medium of exchange. Mm-hmm. However, what are the limitations of physical dollars in the 21st century? Well, you could only send it as far as your arm could reach. There's a lot of complex logistics if you want to move a lot of it physically. Mm-hmm. And as we saw in the COVID-19 pandemic, unevolved money could be a vector for spreading disease, and so much so that some countries resorted to actually laundering their money, aka washing it.
Washing it.
There was a fear that the money itself would spread diseases. Mm-hmm. And so when you consider that, and then you consider the other big unmet need in the world, which is that your and my financial needs don't take bank holidays, mm-hmm. and this new internet-born economy and people born with an iPhone in their hands want instant gratification. In technology they trust, not in God we trust, which is the words we have on the US dollar. And so in that sense, I think of this as completing unfinished work in the financial system as opposed to disrupting it. And the businesses that have respected those boundaries, including the conversation we had the last time about central bankers, have built robust businesses that could withstand a lot of the turbulence of the global economy, of crypto and beyond. But I could not agree with you more. If we abandon the term crypto and blockchains and all of this arcane jargon that has riddled this industry, I think we would be better off, number one, in explaining ourselves to the world, and number two, in getting policy actions that are sensible and not too fear-based.
No, I for the little I do in the sense in the world of consulting, I've banned my team from using the word crypto entirely. And blockchain sometimes you can't get away from, because I guess blockchain's applicabilities beyond just financial services, so sometimes the technology does come into play. But in terms of crypto, I've got a couple of questions which have come out of you, but I'm going to park that for a second. I do want to talk a little bit about what I'm calling sort of, isn't the FOMO getting too much here, right? Who is not launching some version of a stable coin or getting into a partnership? There was a very interesting conversation I was actually having yesterday with someone actually on the show who said, people are now talking about, if they haven't announced a stable coin initiative or program, their stock prices might be taking a beating, right? Do you welcome this, everyone get a token frenzy? Or do you think this is just going to lead to, in my humble opinion, a patchwork of a number of one-off deals, and some of them will not pan out? And if it's a big name behind it, it just unnecessarily creates a certain degree of, I guess, systemic, I won't use the word systemic risk, but, bad brand. Where do you sit on that?
Yeah, well, for one, I thought I had taken care of the era of big tech vanity coins with the Libra project. And I actually still believe I did, and we did, because the world's reaction was visceral, it was instant, and it made one thing clear, which is that, policymakers and central banks are not interested in large systemic institutions with a trust deficit armed with their own money. Mm-hmm. So I think that era in some ways is largely behind us. What we can say, though, and I think frankly it's probably a good thing, although we all should watch out for the .com bubble, reality of a lot of proliferation of a lot of ideas. Meme coins speak to that. The ICO bubble beforehand speaks to it. The non-fungible tokens, the NFT bubble beforehand speaks to it as well. Is that we should, of course, keep an eye out on any .com-like behaviors in the marketplace. The benefit of regulation, MiCA in Europe, the Markets and Crypto Assets Framework, catch me if I use jargon or acronyms, and proposals here in the United States and in other countries are starting to create a level playing field so that in the end, the retail end user who participates in these markets has certain assurances that any product in the market has a level playing field. And in that environment, let 1,000 flowers bloom, right? So we were the first company to be compliant under MiCA of the large operators out of France, not a jurisdiction for regulatory arbitrage. The morning after, a very big bank, Société Générale, announced a product of their own that would be MiCA compliant. And I think today there's probably 20 or so companies that have euro-denominated stablecoins under MiCA, and presumably those products become more fungible in the economy. I think that's a net positive. I think that would produce progress towards public policy objectives like financial inclusion and lower cost payments and a competitive payments environment. Net positive. The thing we should all be afraid of is up until today, so much of the crypto market has been defined by the worst actors. And I think this is a super important point. If by today's standard, a so-called stablecoin issuer is unregulated and unstructured and beyond, it's because they chose to be, because so many countries, so many jurisdictions, and so many financial centers have clear rules in the books for what this activity is.
So you brought the next question. This is going to be next. Banks, minting their own money. Sure. JPMD came out. You mentioned SocGen. There are others on the way, including in this region. I know you're saying that's net positive, right? Let me just ask a bit of a flavor from my perspective, which is, are we getting to the world of sort of walled gardens, right? Where there are certain use cases within, I guess, the remit of a particular bank or banking institutions. And the second question is, are we seeing some sort of two classes emerging here, which is one is this sort of institutional world, which sort of the banks run through either their stable coins and tokenized deposits, and we'll come to that. And then, the USDC world, which is the more, I don't want to use the word retail, but I don't have a better word to use, so I'll say retail. Where do you see this going? Because it does get, my brain's hurt.
Yeah. Well, you remember in Singapore in November, I gave you a spicy answer on the central bank digital currency.
Yes.
And it's so far, 7 years later, I'm going to continue to maintain that my model is on the right side of history.
Right.
I would argue the same also holds true in the bank versus non-bank stablecoin debate, which would now be deposit tokens, quote, versus stablecoins. Number one, I don't think the question should be versus, because I actually think of this
they
as
can both coexist.
A convergence technology, and there ought to be real appreciation of the role the banks play in providing liquidity and on and off ramps to this entire market segment. However, here's the interesting thing. Let me ask you a question. Would you want a deposit token from Credit Suisse, a failed global bank? Probably not, because in that case, the product would be the digital rendition of the asset liability mismatch on the bank's balance sheet. And a stable coin, under, frankly, global regulatory standards, is designed to be a fully reserved tokenized form of money that entitles the holder to redemption at par at all times, including in the issuer's bankruptcy. And there is no bank in the entire world, big bank, small bank, or otherwise, that could withstand an entire drawdown of all of its assets because of the fractional reserve lending system. And so most banks would fail that, which is why banks need a public guarantee, federal depository insurance, and these types of models to shore up the credit creation function that the banks have. Stablecoins are radically different innovations, fully reserved, narrow, liquid, redeemable at all times. And so the interesting thing there is that in the Genius Act, a bank that wants to issue a stablecoin would need to do so from a totally different entity, subject to a totally different set of prudential standards that look more like Circle and less like a bank. And so it begs the question, is that in the core competency of a bank, even one as well endowed as JP Morgan, and Umar Farouk is a dear friend? Is it in their interest to park capital that has to sit there in a very conservative construct separate from the core banking balance sheet to offer a payment solution that might ostensibly only ride on a closed network? What I call those monetary airline miles. And I call regulated generations of stablecoins actual digital cash or tokenized money, because effectively it becomes the property of the wallet and the holder, as opposed to a product that is constructed around the moat or the financial walled garden of a big institution. So I think the two products are radically distinct. And I think of them as potentially additive, because stablecoins are a bottoms-up innovation. CBDCs could be a top-down innovation, and bank-based initiatives on blockchains could be the middle. So it would be the intranet, the extranet, and the internet of value would be one way to describe it academically.
Okay, so let me replay this so that I understand, right? So I totally get the genius. Well, I don't get the genius act totally, but I understand what you're trying to say on the
Well,
genius.
then I'm not leaving until you do. Because
No,
that's why
I will, and we will get to that, and we're keeping good pace. So what we're suggesting is that banks won't do stable coins because it's harder and it's problematic and so on and so forth. But they can switch to tokenized deposits and use tokenized deposits for arguably the similar use cases for which you guys at USDC are offering. I totally hear you from a perspective of, would you want to sort of rely on the bank? The fact is, CFOs world over still continue to use their banks, and for them there's a level of comfort which goes with, here's a regulated entity, I do 101 things with them, and this is yet another offering that I do, right? So you don't fear, or at least it's nothing to fear here, but you're not concerned with this sort of splintering of the market that I'm sort of seeing happen, where large institutional money will move on the back of tokenized deposits. And then I forget CBDCs for the time being. We'll come to that.
So to quote John F. Kennedy, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. The short answer is no, there really is. The reason why is because our business and the way we execute our strategy, number one, it's a long-term strategy. And number two, we're oriented towards a corner of the market that is unserved or poorly served by the entirety of the existing financial system. And so in that sense, that's why we've built such deep partnerships with the banks. I mean, the whole premise, of course, of this world we're talking about is to render regulated financial services on a basic internet-connected device. This is a very, very powerful proposition.
Yep.
Maybe rivaled only in its transformational opportunity by AI. Because if you conceive of this at the scale of how many people in the world are totally off the margins of being banked, for whom it would be impossible to bank them using analog brick and mortar banking and business models like this, digital assets, blockchains, stablecoins, open source mobile wallets are laying down this kind of like foundation and foundational fabric for what our CEO likes to call an internet financial system. And that doesn't mean it has to come at the expense of banks or monetary policy or central banking norms, but it's a part of that value chain. And it is the tip of the spear that allows us to conceive of a world where everyone, everywhere, as a basic right, has access to dollars and euros and pound sterling and payment activity that is open. That's the aim. And in order to do that well, you cannot cut corners with regulation or financial integrity norms. But I see this a radically different business model.
Okay.
Then and the other way to say it is, if all we do with, quote, crypto is create a digital twin of the underlying economy with all of its systemic inequities baked into it and all of its cost structures and the hurry up and wait properties of moving money, we failed. And I at least will be restless on the notion of, I think we could do better than that. And if I wanted to send money to you from the United States to the UAE, I don't know of a better, faster, cheaper, more secure way of doing it than using this value chain that we're describing now.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm actually working on an initiative right now. We've spoken to you guys too about it. Can't name it, but which is about moving money on a wholesale level using stablecoins,
Yeah.
and that just immersion into that project itself has taught me. We're going to quickly skip through CBDCs because I don't think there's much unless well you might have. Last time we met, the crazies were on CBDCs. 98% of the world's GDP economy was testing on CBDCs. I think we violently agreed that retail CBDCs was like a bad idea, right? Wholesale, there was an argument, especially in terms of a few use cases, or at least I had that view. Since then, it seems to have gone deathly silent. There are a few countries which are testing. India seems to have done fairly well on the retail side. I think I'm quite confident that China is doing something on CBDCs too. Obviously, it's a different sort of underlying technology they're using. Are you seeing a slowdown on CBDCs? Have people lost enthusiasm?
Yeah, I mean, I think so the short answer is yes. Some regions, the European Union particularly, have redoubled, uh, which is fair enough because a CBDC fundamentally, when deployed, will be a domestic payments innovation. I almost wish, back to your commentary in the beginning of like, if only the crypto industry would use other words other than crypto. My message to the central banking community is if only they had used other words other than central bank digital currency, it wouldn't have been so evocative of fears of privacy concerns or of fears from the public sector that the public central banking authorities are running a science experiment with money. I think it's perfectly within the remit of central banks everywhere to upgrade wholesale intra-bank settlement systems. We used to call those real-time gross settlement
Yep.
systems or fast payment systems.
RTGS.
RTGS is no big deal. It's not even emotional. In fact, it's so boring that they could go do it without asking their parliaments or Congress for permission. But the second it became we're launching a CBDC because we're afraid of a small project armed with a white paper called Libra, the central banks lost the plot as much as I think big tech lost the plot. And I was there. I had a role to play. I tried to be an emissary and a digital diplomat. And I think over time, the models that have prevailed are entirely responsive to central bank and monetary policy objectives. They promote intra-bank payment system competition. And they're the best and fastest way to ensure your national currency doesn't become technologically obsolete. If you've heard our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, describe why it's important for the United States to regulate payment stablecoins, which is what we would call them under the Genius Act, it is a clarity of purpose around protecting the US dollar and ensuring the reach of the US dollar extends far beyond its current use cases as a reserve currency and well into a domain of internet native world scale money. And I don't know of a better way to win the digital currency space race than that operating model. Free market, rules-based competition. Been saying it for 7 years now. And now the Treasury Secretary and other key leaders in the US are joining that call.
Yeah, and I violently agree. Here's the evocative bit. Genius
Oh
Act.
no.
Right.
Oh no.
I started reading up on it. I read a few pages, and my first reaction was Genius Act, not so genius. And I'll tell you the one bit which sort of stuck with me, and I do want to explain. I do want to explore this with you. So in my sort of I guess simplistic perspective, aren't they creating a risk for this sort of new price insensitive buyers of short-term treasuries, i.e., stablecoin issuers, who are regardless of the I guess the market conditions, going to go in and buy lots and lots of T-bills and run the risk of actually distorting, right, arguably the most important market. The volumes aren't that big right now. They're considerable, but, let's multiply them 10x, 20x. I don't know where it kind of lands up. I just kind of found that a bit strange. So what part of that have I got wrong?
Yeah, well, I think a couple parts. So the good news is, I've been in an industry where the obituary has been written once a month in the pages of the Financial Times or Wall Street Journal or other publications about unchecked risk in crypto.
Right.
For the better part of the last 12, 13 years, that's been the narrative, is that crypto would produce systemic risk and beyond. Thus far, none of the wildest nightmarish scenarios have ever borne out, including the argument that if digital assets grew, they would destabilize fragile economies, or that if digital assets grew, they would disrupt the banking system and the payment systems. Literally, across the spectrum, it has proven time and time and time again to be a convergence technology. And yes, just like the early internet, there have been boom and bust cycles in digital assets, and that's not because of the technology or the market structure. It's because of people. We'll have to remind everyone that when FTX faltered, it wasn't the crypto part of FTX that faltered. In fact, the crypto part of it allowed the world to see in real time where there was indeed a house of cards being propped up. It was the human element and the greed and the unchecked lack of governance, the unregulated nature of the platform that killed it. And so here too, I think the Genius Act does the best job of any legislative proposal anywhere in the world on, number one, allowing bank, non-bank, and credit union competition on the level playing field to issue dollar-denominated stablecoins. It super conservatively reserves the reserve structure of a stablecoin to cash and short-dated U.S. Treasuries. It puts an obligation of passing the Jerry Maguire test that we joked about, show me the money, including criminal penalties and liabilities and beyond. And it doesn't stigmatize the circulation of these products on open networks, which would promote more payment system competition and optionality. So the question of, well, would unchecked stablecoin growth destabilize treasury markets ignores, I think, a really important feature of stablecoins, which is that as a fundamental payments innovation, even a comparatively small total circulation of regulated stablecoins supports trillions of dollars of settlement activity because we're accelerating the velocity of money.
Agreed.
And so I've never bought the argument that stablecoins will, for example, one of the fears we've had to explain to the world was, well, if they get big, they're going to erode the bank deposits and there'll be a flight of deposits. MENA has proven that the opposite is true, because under the markets and crypto assets framework in Europe, stablecoin issuers have to hold reserves, either 30 or 60% of their reserves in the European banking system. So rather than destabilizing the banks, the growth of regulated stablecoins in Europe is propping up and building up the banks' balance sheets. The same would hold true in the United States. And so, frankly, the other piece of the puzzle is its feature. Many stablecoins are being used with low balances as a store of value and as a hedge of international and global currency devaluation or hypervolatility. And in that use case, it's a steady state pool of circulation of stablecoins for a lot of open wallets around the world. I think the Treasury Department and others acknowledge that as one of the core features of this product, which is the extensibility of the US dollar down to this universal retail base. Very powerful model there too. How do you guard against systemic risk? You have to put guardrails around redemption. You have to put guardrails around who can issue a stable coin. There have been a lot of, quote, dollar crypto counterfeiting going on around the world from many jurisdictions. Terra Luna is just one example. And I think pulling this into the perimeter will ensure that all the systemic risk guardrails that would be true of a GSIB, a global systemically important bank, would also be true of a large regulated stablecoin issuer.
Okay, so if I hear you, simple terms, you're saying, right, Genius Act 1.0 solves a lot of problems. I totally agree with you, and I think I should have said that. I think there's a lot of good stuff in it, right? The problem that I've actually tried to highlight, you're saying it isn't as big a problem as you fear, Arjun, and B is, like any other act, there will be iterations, there'll be more guardrails, there'll be a little bit more sensibility which will come in.
And one quick comment here, though, because perhaps there's another category of product that we need to not speak of interchangeably with stablecoins, which is tokenized treasuries and tokenized money market funds. These are radically different products. The Genius Act would actually capture payment stablecoins, which, in addition to all the features we've discussed so far, are also not allowed to pay yield directly to the holder. So they're not an investment product. They're a payments product which solve crypto's original problem, buyers and spenders remorse. So the Genius Act would capture that as a payments innovation. The European structure already does it. Under MENA, what the Europeans call an e-money token cannot pay yield either. And so it's not going to produce a competition, a source of competitiveness against banks and savings accounts, nor investment accounts. But there is this new category of product which is a distinct product than a stablecoin, which is a tokenized money market fund or a tokenized treasury bill. You need a new body of regulation to address that new market, but that's an investment product increasingly being offered by institutional players that will give people access to treasuries and other capital markets innovations. Hence the second proposal we're looking at legislatively in the US, which is market structure rules. That's a new beast. It's distinct from the stablecoin conversation we've had thus far. That's why with stablecoins, I'm not worried about systemic risk at all. I think most stablecoin constructs, and we have an economic paper on this topic, would put many globally systemic financial institutions to shame vis-a-vis how conservative a well-run stablecoin company has to be and redeem 100% of circulation on demand if need be. The biggest risk there is counterparty banks. It's not necessarily the structured issuer.
Okay. No, thanks for clarifying. I'll try and get my hands on that paper too. Here's one on systemic risk, and please choose not to respond. It's about our friends at Tether, right? I don't know. I call it the $150 billion elephant in the room, right? Concentration risk, tremendous. They're I don't know, 65, 70% of somewhere in the region of all stable coins. That itself, I think, creates a certain fear on systemic risk. There is a certain lack of transparency and oversight, right? What if things go wrong there? I think the impact on the wider sector, actually not just stablecoin, but the whole digital assets sector could be quite damning. Where do you, as an important industry player now, who's actually now also publicly listed, right, sit on this?
Well, I mean, number one, it is not my place, nor is it my job to account for it, in part because it is the void, in some respects, the void of legal regulatory clarity. The Genius Act lays out, creates a pathway in which companies everywhere that purport to offer dollars have a regime that they could live under. That's the most I could say, because I do think fundamentally, without speaking of them, but speaking of, for example, Terra Luna, or speaking of other stablecoins in this market, even if you observed pre-existing electronic money rules, pre-existing money transmission rules here in the United States, which is a state-based regulatory framework, you could still put really good guardrails around preserving principal in the event of a risk or a drawdown risk. You could still put really good guardrails, obviously, around national security issues and financial crime compliance and so on. And so to say that we need entirely new rules everywhere for the sector would be disingenuous, because there are, in many countries around the world, e-money rules, payments and banking rules, and at a minimum, financial crime compliance obligations that you could live under. We've lived under those from the beginning. This is a Boston-born company that happens to be coming of age in New York City. And that's a feature. What we also need, and why I think the Genius Act is an important piece of legislative innovation, is we need to promote a framework in the United States that has extraterritoriality, that becomes a domain of promoting regulatory harmonization around the world. Because up until a point in time, for example, in Europe, dollar stablecoins might have more legal clarity at the whole of economy level than the US did, because the US regulatory framework for payments and banking is the sum of the parts. It's the states. So I called it a fintech constitutional crisis for a while. But we're about to resolve that in getting the Genius Act passed. And it also has some important new powers that it would give the Treasury Department. For example, in historical concerns around big tech encroaching on movements of money, I call it the Libra clause. The Genius Act would guard against big tech or a future big tech re-entry in this market. And it would even create a special committee in the Treasury Department that would have powers to review big tech proposals to offer stablecoins, including large commercial companies, not just big tech, which promotes an open model, a competitive model, payments choice in its design. The other important feature of the Genius Act is that it would have certain provisions that are extraterritorial or global in nature. The United States financial crime frameworks are that if a single US dollar or a US person anywhere in the world is implicated in financial crime, illicit activity, sanctions evasion, the authority of the United States is like the eye of Sauron, who see you everywhere and create an obligation on you everywhere. And that's, quote, our soft power. A lot of the geopolitics and geostrategic developments in the movement of money, especially public sector payment systems innovations, has been in part to blunt the efficacy of that soft power. Sanctions evasion and the war in Europe, Ukraine, Russia, for example, the efficacy of Western sanctions is the degree to which the payment systems execute the sanctions obligation. And so I think it's really important that that global nature and national security level nature of digital money, payment systems that are novel, also follow those value systems and those standards. And so the Genius Act also encourages reciprocity, puts the United States back at the seat, having a seat at the global table to kind of level up on a worldwide basis. I think that too is encouraging.
No, interesting. So let me kind of switch to the topic, but I think it kind of lends to what you've just spoken about, and I'll try and kind of make. So why is Walmart excited about doing a stablecoin in their own? Like, you know, I get all of this, and then all of a sudden, you know, Uber wants one, and Walmart wants one, and Shopify wants one, and why don't they just come and ride on your stablecoin?
It's a very good question, and this is where I would rewind the tape back to up until now, vanity coins, whether they were meme coins or stable coins, haven't really worked. The market adoption is not there, in part because the end users, the final end users of these products, want an unequivocal reality in which the product is theirs, right? If stable coins were a genuine digital cash instrument on the internet, it has to unequivocally belong to you. And I think the second you brand the product with your corporate name, you effectively are telling the world or your end user that this is a monetary airline mile. It's usable and it's preferred as a medium of exchange on a closed network. Stablecoins are solving the payment world's most insidious problem, which is the walled garden problem. And the walled garden problem is the thing that precludes a PayPal user from paying a Venmo user, despite the fact that both are owned by the same company. It's the technology layer for how money moves is antiquated and closed, whereas payment stablecoins like USDC are designed on open networks so that they could be universally transmissible and owned at the device-centric level. I just think that the product proposition, the corporate motives are just radically distinct. And so our encouragement and my encouragement to would-be future stablecoin issuers is build on the networks that pre-exist, that enjoy millions of global connected endpoints, that enjoy regulatory clarity and market adoption and end user adoption, and then come up with ways of embedding that as a part of your commercial stream, right? Versus let me just build a digital twin of the pre-existing walled garden. That's why I don't think it's either commercially viable, nor do I think it makes a lot of strategic sense to see this giant proliferation of branded stablecoin-like products from all of these entities. And there's enough proof behind us that that model isn't quite taking off. Not to mention, I think there's some pretty severe regulatory guardrails, including competition law and the risks of vertically integrated players that might be too big to fail in their own category now entering into banking and payments and finance. So I don't see it. One of our former board governors and former national economic advisor to the Biden White House, Lael Brainerd, said that if stablecoins become regulated, it's likely a 70% sort of quote winner market, in part because people want fungibility of the money, and if this is a new category of money, at some stage you're not going to distinguish between a JP Morgan dollar settlement from a Goldman Sachs dollar settlement. What you care about is the dollar settlement, and regulating stablecoins in whatever national currency they may be denominated will merely start accelerating the settlement of financial activity, better, cheaper, faster, and eventually it'll get rid of the notion that everybody needs to have their own branded version of it. What you want is widely interoperable internet scale economic activity for which stablecoins are the perfect medium of exchange.
Human beings don't learn, right? So we're going to make the same mistakes. Are
Well, they
we?
will after this interview.
That totally right.
I hope we've moved the needle a little bit.
Well, I'm hoping, right? And it's a very, very informative discussion. And to be honest with you, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So Dante, thanks for that. Are we ready for, I guess, the HTTP sort of money movement moment? Because they're not going to listen to you.
Well, here's the thing. You remember in the Matrix movie?
Which one? Which
It was
one?
the first Matrix movie
Okay.
in which Agent Smith had Neo on the train tracks, and he says, "You hear that, Neo? That is the sound of inevitability." Because here is where I could reflect back on a little bit of history. The way the world received the emergence of crypto with the pseudonymously published Bitcoin white paper was that I like blockchain, I don't like Bitcoin. Then it became, I like blockchains, but I'd rather have closed permission blockchains as opposed to open blockchains. Then the debate moved on to, well, I don't like stablecoins, I like central bank digital currencies. Then it was, I don't like stablecoins, I like deposit tokens. Then it was, we need a finternet. We, the global central banking and banking institutions, need to create our own global connected network. And what has happened time and time again is that at every turn, you have to effectively start acknowledging where the market actually is. And the market is open source is a hill to die on. Technology and device-centric internet rendered money on internet connected points is an unstoppable network-based force. And the last point I would make from a public policy vantage point, I wrote an article for Milken in a very big piece recently titled "In Code We Trust," which is my final treatise on this topic, published in the Starling Compendium, is technology gradualism is not a strategy. If you want to win the digital currency space race, the AI space race, the quantum computing space race, you cannot unwittingly keep your economy out of the race. You have to unlock technological dynamism and competition. And the more it is rules-based and principled, the more you will prevail. Dollar-denominated stablecoins have been the runaway success and the killer app, so to speak, in this market over the last 7 years. And the United States has said, we're going to enshrine that activity as a part of the extensibility of the dollar and unlocking technological and market competitiveness in the US. And you look around the world, from the ECNY project from the People's Bank of China to all of the would-be central bank digital currency projects all over the world, not a single one of them, including the deposit token debates, not a single one of them has come close. In part because they're still asking for permission versus forgiveness, and they're still trying to figure out what is the right technological architecture that would be future-proof. And so to bet against this is to bet against Moore's Law. And I think it's a very, very bad bet.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. It's going to be interesting. As a matter of fact, I had a Finternet session actually a week ago. So that episode will be. I'll make sure that yours and theirs comes out close together so that people can sort of compare, contrast. Although, to be honest with you, I think from where the white paper was of the Finternet, I think where they are in their current thinking, I think they've evolved and moved along. I think they're closer to, I guess, if I may say, the general direction that you're suggesting, which is, not creating another walled garden, not re-architecting everything from scratch, reusing as much as possible. Let me switch. I'm cognizant of time. Let me switch back to Circle. A couple of questions. Again, I know you've just IPO'd, so please take the fifth on this. Very, very successful IPO. Obviously, I looked at the capitalization yesterday. It looked very impressive. But here's something that I took away, and that's just largely because I do a lot of IPOs for a living, and I've done as a consultant we do that for a living. You guys left a lot of value on the table, right? The bankers really didn't price that. Was that intentional?
Well, I mean, first, as you know, I'm still in a post-IPO quiet period, so can't say much except to say that we have been and will always be a long-term company. And for the better part of our business and founding over the last decade, an objective has been achieved, which was to become a publicly listed company. For us, That was a corporate objective. We think for the category, it creates a standard where, again, so much of the crypto market over time has been defined by race to the bottom, regulatory arbitrage, being on the fringe of finance. The choice, for example, of our corporate headquarters at the top of One World Trade Center in New York, in the capital of the capital markets, is to not only put this activity in the light of day, but to create the type of accountability, transparency, and trust fundamentally, and accountability that comes with being a public firm. So that's the milestone that we've achieved. But beyond that, our objectives in the long range remain unchanged, and it's anchored in our corporate mission statement, which is to raise global economic prosperity through the frictionless exchange of value. Long range, complex, but we're doing that in a accountable, regulated, deeply partnered way with all stakeholders in that value chain. And that starts from the very top of this business to every single person who works in the company. That's the way we're trying to execute.
No, great, and for whatever it's worth, I think the way you guys got the entire narrative, the whole building blocks all put together in terms of how you led to an IPO was a bit of a masterclass. I don't know if you guys programmed it. I actually did a very flattering write up on that for I guess the world here, where a lot of people were sort of questioning luck and this, and I said, you put 5 or 6 things together, and a story starts to emerge. The dots start to connect. So if you guys did that intentionally, well done to all of you, and kudos to the team.
My internal comment, Arjun, is IPOs come and go, but laws are forever.
Yeah.
And so my own work is really defined in some parts by trying to promote this sun never sets model on the company itself. Hence, the international expansion strategy over the last few years has been to ensure that wherever there was a jurisdiction that created legal clarity, regulatory clarity, and very, very high standards, we were there.
Mm-hmm.
Operating in Singapore as a major payments institution. We're the first company to be permissioned into the JFSA and Japan's new rules for stablecoins. We've recently announced in principle approval in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE.
ADGM, yes.
Obviously, the markets and crypto assets framework. We're the only stablecoin available in Canada and permissioned into Canada. And then fundamentally, the passage of the Genius Act would represent a win, of course, for the country. We've always put national interest above corporate interest, but in many respects, it would also acknowledge this US-based fintech level innovation beginning at state oversight and then fundamentally landing with a new US law would be a milestone. But like all things in life, nothing worth doing is easy. Nothing worth doing is worth doing alone. And you could argue that, Circle is a 13-year overnight success.
No, you could say that. And this is going to be my last question. I'm going to save it for you. CPN, right? So Circle Payment Network. So read the white paper a long time ago. You guys are live now. I think the mainnet is out.
Yeah.
Talk to me, like, how does CPN fit into you're looking for ubiquity. Is this the next Swift? We've talked about the death of Swift for as long as I've been in my career too.
Yeah.
So talk us through a little bit around how CPN fits into the wider circle.
No pun intended, right?
Mm-hmm.
How CPN fits in the wider circle. So first of all, Circle Payments Network is a project we're extraordinarily excited about. In part because what it is designed to do is to corral stablecoin activity in an open manner for what the central banks and the payment systems and the banks and many others have been writing white papers about for years, that stablecoins could be very interesting in the context of cross-border payments. Most of the world's cross-border money flows and remittance corridors and payments corridors are encumbered by a very deep lack of competition. Mm-hmm. In most corridors, duopoly would be one way to describe the best way to move money between the United States and Mexico, or the US and Philippines. And then you think about the exacting cost commercial friction and counterparty bank friction introduces to world trade. And it literally is like trying to grow a global economy while putting 2 weights on its feet and slowing it down because of banking friction and payment friction. So CPN is an open technology standard designed for the orchestration and coordination of tokenized money movement payments between trusted counterparties. Remember, most of the stablecoin activity around the world, by virtue of living on open blockchains and open ledgers and on open wallets is already a world scale innovation, but it's a bottoms up innovation. What we're trying to do with CPN is to connect the institutional dots so that counterparty institutions now have a coordination and routing layer in which settlement information, travel rule information, and other information can be exchanged so that stablecoins can be completely unlocked as a medium of exchange for cross-border trade and commerce. Super powerful vision statement inspires it. It's again anchored in our corporate mission and vision of economic prosperity. But we think CPN is a big piece of that puzzle of reducing friction in commercial global transactions and trade. The last quick point I would make, it's super important to anchor all of this discussion not as a technology discussion, frankly, as a human rights and as an equity discussion. We may or may not like the United Nations and the Sustainable Development Goals, but the first of the Sustainable Development Goals is to eradicate extreme poverty.
Yep.
Goal number 9 is to promote financial infrastructure and try to get remittance costs by 2030, that's 5 years away, to a 3%.
3%. Yep. We're sitting at 2 times that if minimum.
Totally technology agnostic. I have no better idea, and no one anywhere in the world has come up with a better model than to ensure that anyone south of the equator for an internet connected device can get access to low cost instant global payments. And then number 1. Number 2, I don't know how you promote universal financial access and eradicate extreme poverty if several billion people are unbanked or underbanked.
No, I agree. So for me,
so herein lies the way. In 5 years, if we're smart and if geographies are smart and if regulators are coordinated and we stop looking at digital assets from the lens of fear, but from the lens of opportunity, we could actually start making material progress towards these objectives, as opposed to writing another annual report at every UN General Assembly meeting about how we're woefully behind on these global objectives. We're not waiting, we're impatient. And now we have windows in which more institutions could come along for the ride. And we think CPN is a big piece of that puzzle.
No, I'm completely sold. I've got a very simple statement, not very intelligent, but here's what I'll say: financial inclusion without affordability is bullshit. So we live with that bullshit. I've been fortunate enough to sit on the board of a number of sort of cross-border payment players over my sort of 20 years professionally, and I've always found